What's up, everybody? This is Ryan from High Desert Queen, and you are watching Seismic Sounds. Turn it up.
Great. All right, we're back here on Seismic Sounds of the Underground. As I'd like to welcome my guest this week from Austin, Texas, metal quartet duel. I'd like to welcome guitarist and producer Jeff Henson. Jeff, what's going on, man? Thanks for coming on. How are you, bro?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well.
Absolutely, man.
Taking a little break from mixing.
Very cool, man. Well, what are you working on now? What are you mixing?
I just got this track in and just imported it. It's for the old guitar player from Head Crusher. I don't know if you remember that band, but he's got a new project. It's like Sepultura kind of metal, but with like theremins and shit. It's real weird. So I literally just opened the project and I'm like, it's a weird one, but it's fun. This guy always does fun, very metal stuff, you know.
Cool,
But yeah, and then I've got to actually work on some of the duel. I got to learn some solos from the duel album this afternoon. That's kind of my next thing on the agenda here.
Next project. Very cool, man. Well, speaking of metal, man, let's get into it, Jeff. The new record from Duel. That you guys are gearing up to unleash. It's titled Breakfast with Death. It's your fifth full length. It's out July 5th on Heavy Psych Sounds, and your seventh now release on the legendary Italian label. You know, just real quick, I mean, it's interesting when I think Duel and Heavy Psych Sounds. I mean, obviously they're one of the, I would say, top three labels in the heavy rock genre, you know, on the globe right now. But I mean, for you guys are one of those sort of OG bands on Heavy Psych Sounds, man. You go back to when they were really starting to take off globally, man.
Yeah, we've been with Gabe with them since 2015, I believe, is when we actually signed with them.
Wow.
So almost a decade now. Shit.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's something too that's rare these days, you know, in music, man, is bands having such a good relationship and sort of a home base with a label. Well, I mean, how have you guys been able to really just have such a good partnership with Gabe and Heavy Psych Sounds over the years? That's something obviously that pretty much every band out there wishes they would have, you know?
Yeah, he's treated us really well. And I hope to think that we've done okay for him. But I don't know. Also, we're pretty low maintenance, you know, we're not very dramatic or anything like that. We're happy that somebody wants to listen to our stuff and put it out. And then, you know, they help us tour, and, you know, it's just been very mutually beneficial relationship, I would say. So, and he's always been really cool. And you can kind of, anything we want to do, he's never said no. He's never given us any notes on any album. He's never anything. He's like, what do you want to do? Cool. Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Nice.
That's not all we want from a label these days, you know. We're not looking for you know, to go 100 grand in debt or something like that.
Yeah, sure, man. No, absolutely. Well, I remember interviewing you and Tom, like I said, for the last album back in 2021. And, you know, like I said, speaking of metal, we were, I know, chatting about sort of the, you know, you guys had a lot of those, you know, classic metal, new wave of British heavy metal, you know, influences that were present on that record in Carney Persona. But dude, man, Breakfast with Death, I mean, in my opinion, this album, it makes your guys now sound, if the core of it, I should say, officially just a metal. You're like a metal band now, not a proto metal band or a stoner metal band. I mean, this is straight up. I mean, so much just metal in your face, man. You and Tom, you know, also you guys have added now a whole new rhythm section on the record as well. So I guess this is like a two-part question. For one, with you know, like I said, I also think this album is definitely your best to date. I mean, I know everyone always says that, right, when the new album comes out. But I think this is definitely the best dual record. But one, how did you guys come to a place where now really you're just so much more heavier and metallic than you were, you know, when the band started out? And two, was adding, you know, Patrick and Drew now to the rhythm section, was that sort of getting them in? Was that part of the vision of you guys to sort of up the heaviness to get them both in? Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So don't know where to start. So one, yes, adding Patrick Scooch, call him Scooch.
Okay.
Adding him to the band. He's more like our first drummer, double kick, just banger, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He's not like the groovy guy, like kind of like Justin was for the last couple records. He's a lot more groovy. So we wanted to lean into that. I, as a producer and a band member as well, wanted to like, hey man, like I felt like there was always a disconnect between our albums and our live show. Our live shows were always wild and spitting beer at people and trying to go crazy and playing more of the heavier tracks. And we kind of just wanted to do an album that was more like that was more representative. I wanted it sonically to sound more like our live show, so a little trashier, a little dirtier, you know. You should feel a little dirty after listening to it or something. So it was kind of a combination of all of that. I think we were wanting to do something like that, and then having Scooch with the double kick and just kind of, he's a New York hardcore guy, you know. So it all just kind of formed together, and it was like, you know, let's just lean into this and see how far we can take it. And also, it's more fun to play heavy stuff live. People go crazy.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, it was more, I think, probably a combination of all of those things. And yeah, we're all super happy how it turned out. I think, you know, it's exactly how I wanted it to, I think.
Sure, man. Well, now that, you know, I mean, not that you would know this at this point because the album hasn't even been officially released yet, but is this sort of the sound and the style that you guys maybe want for the band going forward? I mean, did you want to really sort of fundamentally evolve the band sound in general, or with you guys, is it sort of an album to album thing where it depends on where you're at musically and mentally at that time when you start writing for it that tries it?
Yeah, I would say it's more that album to album thing.
Okay.
I don't think we have any idea what the next album's gonna sound like. We haven't really started on that. Like I said, we're just trying to learn this one now to go play it. You know, we're on tour in Europe in like a month, so we're just trying to get this down. I'm having to go back and relearn all my solos and all this stuff and get ready to play these songs live. And that's about as far as we've gotten so far, you know.
Sure, man. Yeah. Well,
I would think that probably we're going to lean further in this direction for the next one. I think Tom and I have had little talks about it, but I don't think either one of us have written a riff yet, you know.
Sure.
Conceptually.
No, totally. Well, I mean, obviously too, from the album title and the song titles, you know, it's got more of that sort of those apocalyptic sort of destructive themes that are pretty synonymous with metal. It's less a cult theme that I think you guys have done over the years. Now, was that change in the themes or lyrical approach as well as the music? Because that's something that, again, that you wanted to sort of change up a little bit and get away from, or just try to maybe do something a little different that you guys have done previously?
I think, again, we were just trying to lean into the vibe of this new record. We knew it was going to be a you know, kind of a turn from the last couple records. And I think, you know, I think all of us, you'd have to ask Tom, I guess, to be a little more specific. He writes most of the lyrics, but I would say that it was more like, let's just lean into kind of this turn and like kind of write more about that and write more words that fit the music, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, for more specifics, you'd have to talk to him. I don't remember. And, you know, a lot of it just kind of like comes out of syllables, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Like, you know, I'm trying to think of a couple of things. We did write several of the lyrics in here, and it was more just coming out of like, I don't know, what sounds cool here? Okay. How can we make that sound like a dual song? All right, what's the words? All right, that works. And, you know, probably less thought put into it than people would imagine.
Sure. I got you, man. No doubt. Well, let's get into a couple of the tracks here. I mean, so the first, you know, obviously the first single, Satan's Invention, you know, is a killer track that's kind of, you know, obviously pretty similar to what you guys have done over the years. But the second single now, Chaos Reigns, which is my favorite track on the record, man. What a great song that is. That's just one of those tracks that, you know, I was playing it this morning in my car, you know, driving. It's a song when you want to set the tone for your day and get ready to attack the day, pretty much. It's that song you pump on, you know, you blast, and it just really, you know, hits you, just gets you fired up, man. It's just, it puts you sort of that attack mode mentally. And, you know, that main riff and that, you know, the rhythm reminds me, like you just mentioned something before about, you know, what you're working on now in the studio that has sort of a Sepultura sound. That's what that song kind of reminds me of, sort of a Sepultura Chaos AD type of groove and riff on that track, man. It's got to be, I think, the heaviest song that you guys have maybe ever done. Where did you get the inspiration with the riff, especially for that song for Chaos Reigns?
Well, I mean, first of all, Chaos AD is probably my top 5 metal albums of all time. When I was a kid, that was my favorite thing ever. So thank you for that. I don't even remember. I'm trying to remember if Tom wrote that or if I wrote that. I'm trying to go through the song in my head. I keep hearing Pyro. Or no, Fallacy is what I was working on a minute ago. So I keep hearing that riff. I'm trying to.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea where that riff came from, man. I mean, I think it was all a vibe. We wrote, between the two of us, we probably wrote 30 different ideas for this record or something like that. And it was kind of more of just like, which one of these is fitting this vibe and this style and what we're trying to get out of Scooch and all of that together. So I wish I could be more helpful, but I don't even remember who wrote the riff, to be honest.
Okay. Well, like I said, it's a killer riff, man. I absolutely love that.
I love that song too. I love how that came out. And you're probably, I mean, I definitely think this is our heaviest record to date. So, that one, I would say Fallacy is probably my favorite riff to play just because it's so freaking hard to play like that rhythm. Like we don't do things that are difficult to play often. I feel.
Well, I mean, I guess did you want to, I guess, then challenge yourself, I guess, more, it seems like, on this record than before, huh?
I mean, yes, I would say we never look at anything like, hey, let's challenge ourselves and write something complicated. We're definitely still more of a stripped down. I don't want to think too much on stage or, I just want to like hear it and feel the music or whatever. But I think just the tempos in which the album came across, and then, this is the riff. Okay, well, how should this riff be played? And that's how you get like some of the triplets, kind of stuff, and how that should layer. So it wasn't intentional to make it complicated. It just kind of turned out that way, I guess. Again, I mean, my whole philosophy as a producer, as a musician, everything is just like, shut up and listen to the song, and it'll tell you what it wants to do and what it wants to be and where it wants to go. Or you can, put an initial idea in there, a little seed, we'll call it, and then just stay out of the way and just listen to where the seed wants to go. It'll tell you 9 times out of 10 what the song wants to do, where it wants to go, how it wants to sound, all of that stuff.
Yeah. No, very cool. And also, earlier this month, I know you guys also released a video for the track Pyro. Speaking of Pyro, and I know there was, you guys commented, I know, on the video clip for that, you kind of explained what went into the making of that video. And I'm just going to read it here for the audience here. A plastic tarp.
Tom, don't blame me.
Tom. All right. Well, I like it. We said a plastic tarp, $12, a borrowed projector, no money. 5 gallons of gasoline, $16. Sunglasses, a 12-pack of beer, 3.5 grams of high-grade weed, and making a sick-ass music video for humanity to enjoy for thousands of years to come. Priceless. So amen to that, man, because, I mean, you have to walk us through, I guess, that experience with that video that you concocted, the whole sort of plan, I guess, what you did for that. Because it's true, man. You basically just laid out for everyone how these days you could make a really cool and fun video for virtually nothing, man.
Well, that's kind of our thing is, back to our earlier thing is we don't like being in debt. We don't want to spend a shit ton of money on things that are like, maybe you'll get 10,000 views on YouTube or something, but never making your money back on it. So it was kind of like, okay, hey, we need to make a video for one of these songs. We picked Pyro, and now I think that might have been my idea. It's like, hey, let's just get a projector and like just use that for the light, and then we'll hold iPhone next to it and just film that, and like that's it, and it'll look trippy and cool. And Tom's like, yeah. So Tom went and made a psychedelic video or whatever, basically, and we just had a small little projector, and we would just shoot on in. And right behind me, actually, here I'm in my studio right now. From these rafters up here at the top, we just hung he got a big, like, I think it was even like a silver tarp, like just a plastic tarp. And we just hung it, and, we fiddled around for maybe 30 minutes trying to get different angles, seeing what it would look like or whatever, and then just filmed each of us individually. But, yeah, it literally cost us nothing, $20 in weed and $20 in beer.
Perfect.
And then Tom edited the whole video himself. So, we try to be pretty DIY with everything best we can,
Sure.
that
Yeah.
on the album cover you had up there. I've had that album cover in my head for a couple of years. And that's just me sitting in that mask with the on it. And again, we just set it up here in the studio. And we put we set a white sheet up behind it. I don't know if I'm supposed to give this stuff away, but literally that's like a table that sits out of my porch at home. So I brought it out here, and I told my wife to just throw a bunch of stuff that looks, like fitting in a box, and kind of set the table and put it in front of a white sheet behind me, hung a white sheet, across the rafters again. And then I just sat in the mask. We just took a bunch of pictures all the way around.
Nice.
And then Tom was able to Photoshop it. Yeah. I always loved the old Hypnotic records, like from Wish You Were Here and all that stuff. I was always obsessed with those. So I wanted something that kind of looked like that. And I love how it's my favorite album cover we've ever done too.
Yeah, man, I like that. I totally like that. I was going to actually ask you about that, so you go ahead. You would have already answered that question, man.
Yeah, well, stay ahead.
Yeah, no, man. But like I said, no, it's like you said, and you don't need to. Like you said, these days it's silly to, overspend on those things for video production and album covers and so forth. Like you said, especially you guys obviously been around for so long. You know how to, I'm sure, keep the budget sort of intact, when you're out on the road and so forth. So this is just another, I guess, tool you need to learn in order to survive as a band these days.
Yeah. I mean, I tell that to clients and like bands that I work with that are starting out a lot, is that, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades. And it sucks, like the best artists don't actually get to make it because you kind of have to be a businessman. You kind of have to be a promoter guy. You have to wear a whole lot of hats in order to actually do this stuff these days. I feel like, and until you get to a level where other people are helping you, which, Gabe and the label do a lot for us now. So we're not as hands-on as we used to be, but you still need to know all these things. And yeah, you don't want to go in debt. That's what puts bands out of business and breaks up bands, is just being in debt. So you want to try to keep, I don't know. And like you said, man, if you're creative, I don't think you have to spend a shit ton of money to do things, I think it's more, and I think it comes across as more genuine when it's just like the band coming up with some stupid idea or some stupid album cover, and it's like, we're going to do this. And yeah, it may not be the coolest thing or the professional looking or something. And it's like, it doesn't really matter. And people are listening to this through their phones and Spotify or whatever anyway. Like, what the hell does it matter?
Yeah, like you said, it's your own, right? It's your own creation. It's like you paid someone to do and everything. So everything is obviously coming from the band itself. And I think that, maybe in some way it just does something that really, I think, hits, people a little bit more, than something like you said, hired guns to help out with everything that don't really know the band's vision and so forth. So,
well, that's the other thing is every time we've ever worked with other people, I feel like there's always, they don't get the vision. So then there's all this back and forth. And then you're kind of compromising to something, but it's never really fully your vision. And I think Tom and I both just learned years ago, like, let's just figure out how to do this ourselves. So at least it's our vision. If it's not the coolest thing, at least it's our vision, and we're okay with if it looks a little DIY or not quite as shiny or something,
Well, and let's get into now your production, work. Obviously, like you said, you're not only the guitarist for one of the Texas's best underground heavy rock and metal bands, but you also own and operate one of the best places to record one of those heavy rock and metal albums. That's, of course, at your Red Nova Ranch right outside of Austin. Um, Tell us just how you got, I guess, initially into being a producer and how that led to you now, obviously, having Red Nova Ranch now for quite some time.
I mean, it's kind of long. I mean, I've kind of always done this. I mean, I was
Mhm.
15, 16. I had like little mixers and little recorders and was trying to figure stuff out. And then, I started working in studios at like 21 or something like that, kind of interning and learning the ropes. And, I've had a lot of great mentors throughout the way. I figured out a long time ago, one, probably never going to make it as a musician, as far as not having a day job. And
Mhm.
I just like making music. So I figured out, being in a studio, I still get to make music, but and I get paid. So,
Mhm.
and then I got to work. There was a guy named Dave Percival who owns a studio called Yellow Dog.
Okay,
And
yeah.
he
Mhm.
kind of gave me an in with my last band, and I really learned a lot from him. And then I started working under Machine. He moved
Okay.
and I helped him build a studio out. So we did a Clutch album together. We
Mhm.
did, I don't know, 5 or 6 projects together. And then kind of after that, I was just like, I think it's time for me to go out on my own. I had saved a little bit of money and I bought a piece of land east of Austin, where it was still really ghetto at the time and where I could afford it. And
Mhm.
a buddy of mine moved out here and we built this place ourselves.
Wow.
Um, that was 8 years ago now, I guess. Red Nova's been open,
Okay. Wow, that's
but
awesome.
it's a lifetime thing that's kind of culminated into this. It's definitely not an overnight thing. And same thing, getting clients and staying in business is just kind of grows over time and over time. And, one record leads to another and to another. And then, next thing you know, you're just like, I don't know how I got here, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I read an interview too that you did where you talked about how you don't like when it comes to, your production work and when you're recording bands, you don't like using isolation booths. And I know at Red Nova Ranch, right, you guys, it's a single room that you use.
Yeah.
So to talk about how and why you prefer, I guess, to record things in that matter compared to that conventional way that most producers and
Well,
studios do it with the booths.
yeah, I'm a band dude. I just want to be in the
Mhm.
room with band, especially if I'm producing a record. I'm kind of the 5th band member, if you will,
Mhm.
for that time period. And I always hated being, and then I still go work in other studios. Still, it's not just here, I go wherever people pay me to go.
Mhm.
But it's just always awkward. You got to like hold a button down to talk to people, and then their headphones, and then you're trying to listen back through whatever mic, and it's just
Mhm.
awkward. This isn't natural. I think it should just be 4 guys in a room playing, whatever. So, I have a box over here that I can fit 2 half stacks in. And the walls are, I don't know, that thick or so, like 6 inches thick with 2 inches of insulation. So you can barely hear it in the room. So everybody can still play and feel right. But I think you need to be looking at each other. You need to be giving cues to each other and feeling like, oh, and laugh if he hits something weird. Oh, let me go with that. Like you need that interaction to get the vibe of an actual band, I feel like. And I feel
Mhm.
like everybody's in different rooms and there's glass, and some studios I've worked in don't even have glass. They're just like cameras and TV screens. And
Oh,
it's just like,
man.
it isn't natural. Like people
Mhm.
aren't supposed to play like this. This is supposed to be a group of guys together. So when we built Machines studio out in Dripping Springs, which is like west of Austin,
Okay.
that was kind of his design. And I'd never really, I mean, I'd recorded in my bedroom and, houses and
Mhm.
things like that, but I'd never been in a studio that was designed that way. And he designed and we built it that way. And it was like, yeah, this is it to me. And first time I did an album, and actually we did the first dual album in there as well.
Okay.
Um, um, and yeah, it just like it felt natural. Like I can just turn around in my chair and we're sitting here. I can look at the drummer. I can, like, okay, now here I can cue him. Okay, now bridge, and I'm a band guy. I'm used to running band, leading bands, and kind of looking at musicians and things like that. So that was kind of my so when you design the room though, I design it so I don't know how much you can tell where I'm at right now, but
Mhm.
whole room kind of goes like this. So where
Okay.
I sit at, I have floating panels all above me, and it's all dead behind, and it kind of expands out. Even my walls, I built at angles, so everything kind of comes out like this. So
Mhm.
I still have a really great mixing spot, and I don't feel like the only thing you're giving up sound wise is just the initial dialing in of drums and
Okay. Mhm.
sounds that are in the room. There's some starting and stopping kind of things, but now, like I said, it's been 8 years. So I've gotten really good and really quick at just doing it here, even when they're in the room behind me. And then
Mhm.
after that, it just seems natural. Like feel like we're at rehearsal, which is
Mhm.
um I feel like a lot of studios are sterile, and they kind of they don't breed creativity and spontaneous whatever, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
that's always what I wanted this place to be, is kind of an escape, but also just a very comfortable place where we feel like we can write and create and be fresh here without feeling like if we knock over a beer or something, we might ruin this $1 million place or something. It's like
Mhm.
this is rock and roll. So I'm probably a
Mhm.
little closer to like an old Sound City studio where it's probably a little grimy. I have, pipe on my desk and ashes
Nice.
or something, like it's all right. It's how you make rock and roll.
Absolutely, man. Well, and you can tell the difference, when things are recorded that way. I mean, sonically, obviously, with your records with Duel, you guys do have your own unique sort of sound and ambiance, and that's, I think, what bands really want in the long run. Musicians and music fans are definitely, at least, ones I know and talk to. I mean, everyone's burned out on the traditional way of recording, where, like you said, it's just all digital and overdubs and just, like you said, in booths. I mean, just all that, everything sounds the same, but like I said, you could tell the difference when, from the albums I've heard that are recorded at Red Nova, it has its own, unique sound. And that's exactly what, like I said, people and musicians are looking for, is to get their own sonic nature. And it's hard to do that, like you said, if you're doing things just the quote unquote conventional way these days. Everyone does it, you know.
I think, especially as a producer, my job is to find the vibe of a band
Hmm.
and turn that up to 10, because
Hmm.
that's what really connects. I feel like is like having a unique vibe. If you go listen to most of the albums that you grew up with, or that mean something to you, they have a really strong vibe and like a sonic character to the band.
Hmm.
So I one don't want to ever be I don't want to pigeonhole myself into one sound or one thing. I like to mix it up, and I like to do things, and I'll mic things just based on the vibe that I'm getting from the band and that I'm going for sonically. So
Hmm.
I think, like you said, I think that's everything, man. Songs are songs. We're all writing kind of the same stuff at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And it's like, how do you put your spin on it? And then how do you have your own unique vibe? Uh,
Hmm.
you know, I don't know how many 100,000 records come out a day or something like that now, Spotify was saying. So it's
Yeah.
such an exuberant amount. It's like, how do you stand out? And it's like, well, you write good songs, and then you have like a unique vibe that's unique to you. And that's the hardest part to find, I've found, as I've gotten older now, like to really put a unique vibe and a unique sound on stuff.
Yeah.
And I've tried with each Duel album to make it a little different sounding and the vibe to match what I felt like went with the music.
Mhm.
So, like I said, there's this new one is a lot trashier than the last two. I feel like way
Oh,
less
yeah.
clean and way less, you know, it's probably not as mixed as well technically or something. But to me, that was the vibe that it wanted, and it hits. So I'm super happy.
Yeah, it's a little dirtier, and that's what I love about it,
That's what I
absolutely.
wanted. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
too easy now, man. Everybody can get a clean sounding record. It's so,
exactly.
and when I was young and we started off, everybody was just trying to get good, clean sounds so you could
Yep.
hear everything. And
Mhm.
now it's like come full circle where everybody and their dog or $500 can have some super crystal clear channel that comes into their computer and things. And it's like, yeah, but it's sterile now. It doesn't
Absolutely.
vibe. And it's like, I'm always, I would always rather go harder for the vibe and miss it than not go
Mhm.
for it at all. And
Mhm.
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I will definitely say I've had some failures where I'm like, ah, that didn't work as well as I thought it would, but we went for it. That's
Mhm.
the most important, I feel like.
Yeah, man, that's what you could do it. And what's interesting too is, the studio, like you said, it's located in a remote setting, like you said, I know, like you said, I think I read it was near like a lake or outside there, like you said, of Austin.
Yeah,
And
yeah, we've got a small lake out here that the land's on. Yeah.
yeah, and we've seen like traditionally. I mean, so many great rock and metal records have been recorded throughout history, have been done sort of in rural areas, so that there's no distractions to the sort of I guess creative process overall. I mean, in your opinion, now you've been doing this for so long. I mean, how crucial is that from your experiences? Not only as a producer, but also as a musician and artist, to have a recording done in that setting compared to say one in like an urban area. I mean, do you find that really absolutely has that much more of a positive effect, I would say, on the musical output when the band is free of any of those potential distractions that can occur when you're not isolated away from the rest of society when you're recording? I mean, do you find that that is a crucial
I don't.
piece?
It's definitely a vibe, and I think it helps
Okay.
people relax a little bit. I feel like a lot of people, when they go into a studio, get tense and stressed out. Like this is going on the record, and a lot of people get nervous in the studio, and that was
Hmm.
one big thing I was trying to fight. But I worked for years at a studio right off of South Congress in Austin. You walked out the door, and it was traffic and
Okay.
chaos.
Hmm.
But there was also ton of great places to eat and grab a beer and stuff like that, and it had its own energy and vibe. Or if you go work in any major city in the city, like there's a vibe to that.
Hmm.
I don't, I guess I don't know if it's better or worse or how I feel about it that way. It's just kind of, I wanted to be able to record drums at 3 or 4 in the morning without anybody giving a shit.
Okay. There
that
you go.
was that was a big thing for me too. I'm not rich, so I couldn't afford. I realized too, in failing a couple times with studios in the past, that the only way for this to work is for me to own the land, own the building, and own the land. If
Hmm.
you're renting and then you're doing $20,000 worth of build out to this building you're renting, that's just money down the tubes that you're just going to throw away in a couple of years, and your overhead gets so high and all this stuff. And it was like, listen, I just like the only thing I think this works is like make it where I can't go out of business. I'm going to go buy the land. I'm going to build it myself with some buddies, and like so to me, I guess that's more how I ended up here, is that I wanted the relaxing thing, but it was also, I just didn't want to over leverage myself where I could fail again,
Hmm.
and I wanted to be able to, like, we can go record drums at 3 in the morning out here and bass and be as loud as we want, and nobody will say anything,
Hmm.
like, definitely had problems with that in the cities and different places, that I've worked at, where, there's a hard 10 p.m. or a midnight cutoff
Hmm.
because neighbors and this and that. And it was like, okay, I just don't want any limitations. Let's just
Hmm.
be able to do this, me not go out of business. And also, so I definitely, when we've even talked about maybe going to another studio to do a record, or, I go work at other studios, um, relatively often or whatever. So I don't mind the vibe. And I personally like going to other places just because it's fun. It breaks it up for me and gives
Hmm.
different set of toys to work with, different sounds to deal with sometimes. But I think having a vibe is important. I don't know that the country vibe versus the city vibe, they're just different. And it's kind of more what you're looking for and where your mindset is in making your record, you know?
Hmm. No, absolutely. Now, when it comes to now, not only being a producer, and an engineer, but also being now a professional musician, how tough is it really for you to balance, writing, recording, and touring with Duel, along now with your career, having your own studio and being a studio, professional? I mean, is it with scheduling and everything? I mean, how does that work? I mean, is that really tough for you to balance that? Do you have to like do things well in advance? Just kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am pretty well booked out through the end of the year.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I mean, yeah, you kind of looked at, I don't do like little like singles, or like I don't do
Mhm.
typical recording studio work very much anymore.
Okay.
I have a guy that works for me, and he'll do that. He'll like just record some bands that need a couple songs, but generally all of my work now is albums, and they're usually take months. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
relatively in depth the majority of my work now, or I'm mixing, and it's still, it takes a while. So yeah, I generally try to stay booked out several months ahead of time. And then also, as I've gotten older, I would say what I find more important is like having downtime.
Mm,
So, you can easily get burned out going album to album to tour to album to album to tour. And like,
sure.
uh, so like right now I had I made several records earlier this year, and like I'm kind of taking off this next month for the most part. I'm gonna go travel with my family for a couple weeks, and then then we hit the road again. We're back in Europe in August, so I don't know if I'm answering that well enough. It's definitely well, I have a son now too, so it's like that's more than anything probably interfered with timing stuff more than just I don't know. It's all kind of the same to me, making records, touring, playing, whatever. It's like I get to be a child for a living. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, but the dad role now has takes more. I want to give more time to that, I should say. It does take more time, but I want to be a good dad, and I have this more flexible life, so I want to take advantage of that as best I can. So and yeah, like I said, like take off. I have like 2 little projects I'm mixing right now, and then go travel for a few weeks with the wife, go on tour. And as soon as I come back, I have Mean Mistreater coming in. I don't know if you've heard them yet. Perhaps you should check them out.
Okay.
It's Alex from War Cloud.
Okay.
He's got a new project with his wife, and they're freaking awesome. And it's like kind of 80s, like old thrash metal kind of stuff,
Wow.
like early Metallica kind of sound and stuff, and they're awesome. So I'm excited. And so as soon as I get home from tour, I think I have 2 days off, and then we'll jump straight into the studio with them. And so yeah, I just try to keep it. Yeah, you definitely have to book out months ahead of time. But most albums I work with now are all in labels and stuff, so everybody's got timelines and when they're one. And usually when they hit me up, they're hitting me up months ahead of time, because we'll start some pre-production as well. So they'll send me some demos, and I'll kind of give notes back and forth, what I'm hearing, what I'm thinking, so they can be working on that stuff while I'm doing another record or on tour or whatever. So I don't know. It's just day-to-day life for me at this point, I guess,
No, yeah, absolutely, man. It's like you said, you got 3 things to balance there, but like you said, it keeps you obviously occupied, and you're always obviously busy, especially like you said, now with a kid, man, just speaking from experience, of course, that's a whole nother level of responsibility too. So, but it's all part of, like I said, being doing what you're doing as a musician and a music professional. So, now just getting back to DUEL, as we were talking about before. Now, you guys, I mean, 7 releases. You got the 5 studio albums, with Breakfast with Death now coming out. You got the 2 other live records on Heavy Psych Sounds. I mean, you guys are as consistent of a band, really, as there is in this underground heavy rock and metal scene. I mean, you guys tour consistently. I mean, you and Tom really, it seems like, operate the band. Really, it's a well-oiled machine. What it seems like. Now with the current musical landscape, that's really difficult to do. I mean, but obviously consistency and persistence is really everything. If you're going to be able to survive, as you said, as a band. Not many bands are able to pull it off these days. Is it so with you guys? Is it just when you started out, you set out to do this? Did you guys have sort of that long game in mind? Like, we're going to have to grind it for. I mean, bands usually got to grind it for about 10 years now for really to catch on with audiences across the globe. Is that what you guys set out to do initially as a band, or is it just the way things just kind of went, and your goal was just to keep things consistent and moving forward? Talk a little bit about that.
I don't think we have ever thought that far.
No, okay.
No, I mean, we get to be kids, man. We just like being and at this point, I don't think there's any danger of us becoming the Foo Fighters or being giant rock stars. We're just like, man, we're getting older. We're just happy we still get to keep doing this shit, to be honest with you. And I think Tom and I have always just tried to keep like a childlike excitement about it, and it's like, we get to have awesome experiences. We get to do awesome stuff. That's all that matters. And if we can keep this train rolling, like, why not? It's not that hard. And, there's not, that much money involved or anything like that. So it's like, let's just go have fun. Definitely as I get older, that's the more thing that I appreciate is like, this allows me experiences that nobody else gets to have, I go play some really rad festivals, get to hang out backstage with people that I admire. And like, this is rad. As long as I think but there was definitely never any, especially in 2015, 2016, we were really getting going. I initially was just going to do one tour with the band, and then I was like, I'm done. I'm going to open my own studio. I don't have time to do this shit. But I don't know. I just couldn't leave. There's something that's like addicting or something. Like once you kind of get into this game, it's like really hard to stop touring.
To leave it. Yeah.
You kind of lose yourself a little bit or something. It's important to. Tom had good advice for me when I had Hawk, when I had my son, because Tom's got several kids himself, and he was like, I quit playing for a few years and I just lost myself, and then I was miserable, and then I was no good to anybody. And so, we took a little time off when I had my son, and then we came back. Our first tour back after I had him was in March of 2020.
Okay.
So we were in Europe when this whole pandemic bullshit happened.
Yeah.
So then I got like a forced almost 2 years off or something. And that really kind of solidified for me, like, yeah, I got to keep touring. I got to keep doing this stuff and these experiences, whether it makes sense or not. It's like, this is what we do. So let's just do that and do it as long as we can, as long as people will let us.
No, absolutely, man. Yeah, and when it comes to touring or just with the band, with Duel, I mean, to me, I personally feel like you guys just aren't. You don't get really the love and respect here in the U.S. That I think you deserve. That you obviously do get though in Europe, which is something.
All of our touring is in Europe. We've done one U.S. tour, and then otherwise we just fly out do New York for a weekend. We fly out to L.A., do West Coast for a weekend, but we haven't tried as much in the U.S., I would say.
Well, I mean, almost do you feel like it doesn't really make sense to you because it's. I mean, you hear from everybody. It's just. I mean, you hear it all the time with bands. It's like, well, it makes more sense to go to Europe. They're more supportive. Every time they have better amenities when you're traveling. You've got they take care of you with food and. And they'll always come out and support. Once you go there, they're fans for life. There's what everyone says, right? Or like here, unfortunately, in the States, it's like it's more of a trend thing where people might love you one day, next time you go out, they're not there. Does in your view and opinion, I guess, I mean, what is your take on that? Does it just simply not make any sense to tour here in the States to just do what you're doing in Europe?
Oh, so I have a few different ways of looking at that, or that I look at it at least. Well, one, like you're saying, just monetarily, man. Every night we got to get our own hotel room or 2 hotel rooms. We got to feed ourselves. We got to do all that stuff. All that's taken care of in Europe, right? So we have load-in snack, and then we have a dinner, and then we have a nice place to stay every night. So that, already half your money goes to that in the U.S. And then my theory, and I don't, this could be just in my head or bullshit, but I feel like art in Europe is appreciated as like a welcome member of society, like a plumber or electrician. Like you're a necessary part of society. We need art as a society. And I feel like in America, it's we're just about money. Go get a job, you fucking hippie, and it's, it's like we just don't have any appreciation for art, unless like some uber commercialized thing where I feel like they're, like you said, like they're happy that you came from Texas to wherever, Croatia or to Germany or wherever, to play music for them. They're just like, thank you for bringing art to our, and enriching our souls or something. It's kind of more the feeling. And I just feel like it's more appreciated. And then to me, it's just more fun. I've toured all over the US for a long time with other bands and things. And I've seen it all, and it's all kind of the same. A lot of strip malls and a lot of McDonald's and shit. And like over there, I go to old castles and study ancient stuff and see things that are different for us. So from the experience wise, I much prefer it over there. It's just, it's different. That's why I know a lot of them like coming over here, because they're like, it's different. Everything looks the same here. We're tired of cobblestone streets and ancient churches and shit. But yeah, and due to our commercialism of art in this country, we have now allowed Live Nation to buy news and Ticketmaster and everything. And it's just, they kind of killed the pandemic, kind of put a lot of the little guys out of business, or if you were medium or bigger, then you got bought out. And it's like, we kind of have done this to ourselves, where we've just destroyed our own music scene here, There isn't as many venues to play as there was 10 years ago. And definitely not and I understand if the club owners aren't making much money, they can't pay as much, and I understand it. But I feel like we've kind of done this to ourselves, and it's why our art is kind of a lot of the art that a lot of people put out or push here is very generic, lowest common denominator, because they know they can sell it to a large number of people or something, and everything else, like, you're not worth our time.
Yeah.
That's why Gabrielli with Heavy Psych and Nuclear Blast. I think why a lot of the labels in our scene now are all based over there as well. So, we still find validation in underground art and things that aren't going to sell to the mainstream masses. And that's okay.
Yeah. No, Live Nation, it's a great point. That whole on the road again thing. I know a lot of bands were looking at that as some sort of saving grace. It's like, man, that's only going to continue to just destroy, like you said, all the small clubs where the underground music comes from. And like you said, a lot of these clubs, you're right, they've been coming out saying they've almost had to make a deal with the devil just to stay open. And some aren't doing it; they'd rather close up shop. And then the ones who do stay open, like I said, have to go down that path. So it is kind of it's a dire thing, unfortunately, here in the States. But at least, it is good to see that there's parts of the world that haven't gone, that route yet. And like I said, have been able to, not, like you said, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot here, unfortunately, in the States with that. But
I think it'll come back,
Sure, I think so too. Yeah.
It always has been.
Yeah.
Like they're here in Austin, man, there's these tunnels. I don't even know where they're at, but there's these tunnels somewhere that all these kids keep throwing little punk rock shows in.
Oh, interesting.
And it's like so Tom had to drop his kid off. He's like, just drop me off here. And then we hike down into these tunnels and they throw a little punk rock. I'm like, dude, that's the heart and soul of all that shit. I love it. My kids are doing it. They're finding places to play. They're, we're the dads of these kids now or something. Maybe we're a little older to be as involved in it, but I think that there's still a scene coming back, and I think it'll come back in a cool way and in an authentic way. That's what's cool. But what's cool about the underground, what's also important, is that it has to be authentic, and like these kids can sniff out immediately if somebody's trying to commercialize or make money out, whatever. And it's like I think it's definitely going to come back, and I think it's just a matter of time, and it's cyclical. I at least hope that. But.
Yeah, I believe so too. Listen, if there's any place that's going to be stay afloat and really thrive, it's going to be a place like Austin and Texas in general, where there's you guys obviously down there. It's I mean, right now there's the scene, the heavy rock scene that's going on is absolutely huge down there, and it's thriving, which some places like here in the Bay Area, California, not so much. It's kind of, it's very, it's treading, shallow waters right now. But again, I agree with you. I think it's cyclical, and I think, things are going to come back around as well. Definitely hopeful. But like you said, in the meantime, you guys, obviously, you've got now your European tour scheduled for August in support of the record. So tell us a little bit about the tour, and also what are you guys planning on other than this tour, maybe that you're going to do in terms of promoting the record and getting this out there for everyone to check out?
Oh shit. Definitely my least favorite thing in the whole world is marketing. So I have no idea. We have PR people and other people that deal with that. And I make the records. That was kind of my deal. It was like, I'm going to make the records and I'll show up and play guitar and stuff, but I don't want anything to do with any of that stuff. I'm happy to talk to you, and, we'll do a few more of these things. But I don't know what they're going to do to promote the record. I hope they do a lot.
Are you guys going to do any more tours for it, or is it just this is the main tour? You're
Well, we have this one, and then I think they're booking. I think we're looking at May, coming back to Europe in May. I don't know if we're going to do much in the U.S. at all, to be honest with you. We're kind of, we don't mean to ignore like our home country or anything. And we do a few shows here or there around, the Austin area from time to time. But I don't know if we have I guess it depends, like if we get offered any festivals or anything like that comes up. Like we'll fly, like I said, West Coast or East Coast or wherever to do that. But as far as like an actual US tour, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I don't know.
Sure.
I haven't really looked at these dates too much. So I'm kind of looking at what you just put out. Oh yeah, that place would be cool. My son is very excited. One of these festivals we're playing with Meshuggah, and that's his favorite name
nice.
playing it. So he's like very excited that daddy gets to go play a festival with Meshuggah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. I mean, I was always able to check you guys out when you were out here for the Heavy Psych Sounds Fest. But now obviously that's been not happening. I guess this year they decided not to do it. I don't think there's been enough interest in ticket sales for it. So that's what kind of, unfortunately that won't continue. I don't know. Hopefully maybe next year it will and so forth. But again, like I said, it's, but hopefully, people here in the U.S. could get, check you guys out at some of these festivals. The good thing is there are, the Ripple Fests, and I know you guys do your own, Stoner Jam, and Tom, I think, does every year, and so that's what's kind of, at least here in the U.S. there are these festivals popping up all over the country.
Yeah, and there's more of them, and there's a good chance something's going to happen, and we'll end up back on the West Coast, in the next 6 months or a year or something like that. No, and like you said, there are a lot more of these underground kind of little I know Mario's starting to do a lot out. Mario Lolly starting to do a lot out there, kind of in the desert and Joshua Tree area. And there was somebody trying to do something at Bottom of the Hill. Is that the place in San Francisco?
In San Francisco? Yeah, sure.
Well, yeah, I never heard or I never followed up if that was still happening or not. But I know guys are still trying to do it, and I think, like we were talking about, like the kids in the tunnels, I think that's how we come back in this country is like Ryan Garney doing the Ripple Fest down here and Tom doing the Stoner Jam, what's his name? John in Vegas. Buddy was doing the Buddy Donner from Great Electric Quest. He was in, what's the name of his record label? Glory or Death Records. Doing like a little festival in like Tempe, Arizona.
That was like last week or so. I saw that, right? Yeah. Okay.
So it's like, I think right now that's probably the answer is more smaller festivals and there's the Maryland one, the
Doom Fest.
Yeah, and like
Desert Fest. Yeah, you have a bunch of them.
I feel like there's more and more popping up over here, and I think that's kind of our answer to all of this stuff.
I think you're right. It's because it's driven by the musicians and fans, and I think that's what's important too. Is most of those little festivals are all. They're coming from a genuine place, they're not coming from a bunch of money just coming in. We saw it happen with like the Psycho Vegas thing. And, when you get to that, I think when you want to increase it and make it bigger and bigger and get a little bit greedy is when these things usually tend to fizzle out. So I think as long as it's, like you said, coming from those tunnels, that mentality, that's what will bring it back, like you said, here in the country. I agree. So once again, for everybody, Breakfast with Death, it's out July 5th on Heavy Psych Sounds. Jeff, where should we send, the viewers and listeners to, obviously keep up with the band, where they could check out, the singles that are out now and everything, and just keep up with the band in general? Where's the best place? Do you know that at least here? I could share.
Instagram, Facebook. I don't know. That's not my job.
You guys still have a website, correct? At dueltexas.com, I believe.
I have no idea. Do we?
Okay. I checked it out. It's
probably the worst interviewee about this kind of stuff. I'm way more focused on making the records.
Sure, man. Yeah.
Less on how to sell a record or how to follow us. That's kind of Tom and the label's job. I have no idea if we still have a website. I don't think I've ever been to it. If we do. Well,
I checked it out. It is there, so people can. Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yes, and like I said, like our Instagram's Duel Texas. I think Facebook's probably Duel Texas. Heavy Psych Sounds Records. And then you should be able to buy it at your local record store, I believe, and things like that if you want to hear the record. And then, of course, Spotify or all those horrible companies, you can stream it on those as well if you'd like. We have a band camp as well, so if you actually were buying the digital and you buy that money actually goes to us. So we definitely encourage doing that as opposed to giving the money to Spotify or some horrible thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Bandcamp, everyone, go ahead and check it out. Breakfast with Death. Great record, man. I love it, Jeff, man. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me. And man,